Morning, Claudette.
Morning, Claudette.
Good morning, everyone. Sorry I'm late.
No problem. Not for me, anyway. So this morning, it's I have to look at the title again. The Buddha and the Original Sangha. And in reading this, I was feeling pretty peaceful and sort of filled with some awe, about kind of visualizing, like he said in the first meditation, the great assemblies where the Buddha taught, and just kind of admiring and welcoming, that great spirit of bodhisattva spirit of compassion that the Buddha went through, and how his whole life was devoted to this bodhisattva vow to save all beings from suffering. And so I was thinking that, the first tenet of the Eightfold Path is right view, and also the first paramita is generosity. And so I was thinking in terms of this little meditation is really sort of setting the stage for right view, or right understanding. And, Reb teaches that right understanding is realizing the depth of intimacy that we share with all beings. So when we open to that possibility that we are one with all other beings, it leads to, it allows us the freedom to fully feel the fullness of our experience, and open to the possibility that we actually are this life force, and that we receive this aliveness through our offering of all of our experience to the Buddhas. And this opens up the deepest devotion in us, to the way. But it's devotion to the source of our devotion. It's not devotion to some ideal or some object of mind. It's more a heartfelt presence that we intuit. And we realize that it's not something we can grasp. It's not perceivable or describable. But not grasping and not turning away allows the receiving of the vast openness of great compassion. And, Thai entitles his first mindfulness training is titled Openness. So it's also the receiving the nature of that by which we know our experience, which is our true nature. It's that presence that's with us every moment of our lives. So it's ever present. And, we don't practice or we don't seek this great compassion. We open ourselves to it and allow it. And in learning to practice and to train welcoming everything unconditionally, we naturally begin to feel welcomed, unconditionally welcomed. And feeling unconditionally welcomed more and more reinforces our motivation and our natural response, which is the appropriate response to welcome life unconditionally. So we're more free to welcome life unconditionally the more we receive this great compassion and feel unconditionally welcomed. So, and then there is also, where he talks about united in body, speech, and mind. It's like there's the visual aspect. I see you in the Sangha, and I see you as this great compassion. And I want to be in touch with the spirit of the Buddha, the spirit of awakening. So that's evidence of our united in body, speech, and mind. So it's our whole being, is one great being. And Thai has a saying that our actual substance is, we actually are made out of everything in the whole universe except for one thing. And that one thing is a separate self. So when Thai talks about emptiness, he's talking about the emptiness of all notions, notions of birth and death, of being and non-being. And the freedom from those notions, he says that, he has a saying that's pretty famous. All phenomena, or all human experience, are impermanent and subject to birth and death. But if we remove the notions of birth and death, then the thundering silence is called great joy. And he says, he also says that this is one of the greatest poems ever written and should be put to music. So that saying in itself is, coming from the depths of his wholehearted devotion. Devotion means, in Buddhism, I think it means at one-ment, or one with. At one-ment, another Buddhist cliche, atonement equals at one-ment. So that's another way of saying that Thai and Reb really strongly agree on this point, that confessing and acknowledging our weakness, our doubts and our self-clinging, helps to melt the root of our resistance to this truth of our life. So again, we don't have to seek this great compassion because we don't have to liberate our essential being because our essential being is already free. And so we don't have to seek this great compassion because our essential being is the intimacy of this great compassion. So if we allow and receive the ever-present flow of that life energy. And it's just like Kwang Roshi taught us, we practice not to block or interfere with the free expression of our life force. So we don't really surrender our separate self. Our separate self is surrendered again and again. The flow of impermanence. There's nothing fixed in this universe. There are no entities, If we deeply explore our experience, we come to that realization. Our thought now being no thought, as Hakuin says, then our dancing and singing are the voice of the Dharma, and that's the ever-present flow of our life. So the ungraspable nature of all phenomena, that's still pretty awesome to me. Maizumi Roshi said that we're born and we die so many thousands of times every second. It kind of melts the contours of our body if we deeply contemplate that. Like I'm shutting my eyes now and all I know of the body are all these different sensations floating around, thoughts, feelings, perceptions. And then I open my eyes and the body's here, the physical body's here. But the sensations are still here too. And it's easier to see that there's no limit, Our true nature has no limitations. And because I've been practicing this for a long time, it's spontaneously obvious that the sensations that I become more aware of when my eyes are closed are still present, and they're in no way limited by the physical image of the body. And the physical image of the body is in no way limited by the sensations. So we actually spend a lot more of our waking hours not being aware of our body than we realize. It's there and it's always there, but the presence that enables our physical body to be there has to be there for it to manifest. And so Thai spends a lot of time talking about continuation. We are the continuation of our ancestors, of all beings. We're all interconnected in that way. And it's good that we're teaching, we're studying both of these great teachers simultaneously, because their devotion is so thorough and their wisdom is so deep. And looking deeply is Thay's phrase for realization. And Reb also has dedicated his whole life to that looking deeply. So we feel that support of the Sangha. We look deeply together and see that we are made of everything except a separate self. So I was going to talk short, but I only talked 11 minutes. That's pretty good.
Thank you, Roger. That was beautiful. That was beautiful. I mean, you, she's probably more so than I think than anybody I think I've ever heard teach before. And you have a knack of bringing quotes, and you must have done like 6 quotes in 11 minutes and bringing things in together with that. And it's like, holy shit, I can hardly remember one quote of anything with that. It's very, I mean, and you started it off so nicely, I think, because when I when I think about Buddhism, and for me, when I put the person on the pedestal, it's Thai, right? That I actually, this was interesting. The other day I was on, I look at Buddhist statuary and different things. There's this one guy that goes around the world collecting Buddhist statuary and also Hindu sculptures and things like that. And he sends out like a newsletter and he sells his stuff. But I came across like the Buddha statues, like the gold ones, where Buddha is in different poses, but it was Thai in these different poses. It was a statue of Thai, and it was like I had like an immediate affinity. It was like I was contemplating, I need to have one of those. I want one of those, because when I see his composure and when I see his face and when I see that kindness, I'm so, I don't know, it does something inside me. It vibrates in a way that feels good with that. And when you started off with Buddha, it's the same thing. When you think about somebody teaching for 40 plus years, whatever he did there, and devoting his whole life with that, it's remarkable. I mean, to me, it's remarkable, and it scares the hell out of me at the same time, because it's to have that much devotion and to have that much compassion. I fear that it would eat me alive. And one of the first things I ever said to Mitch in a meeting in Boca was that, Jason, I'm afraid if I get into this, I'm going to turn on, tune in, and drop out, in some way, and just lose something, whatever that something is. At least I felt there was something to lose, and focused on loss instead of gain with that. And so your talk it was very centering. And when I think about Thai, and when I think about that type of lifelong devotion and lifelong teaching with that, I mean, to me, it's remarkable with that. And I think you carry on that tradition in a very essential and, to me, a grateful way for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for your devotion, not to me, but to the way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure where I'm going with all this. Impermanence and what you said, that notions, because I once, up in Lakeland, there was a guy, Michael, I think. he passed away. I think he had a book called The Book of No Notions. And I'm trying to understand, because Buddhism is a type of phenomenology. I mean, it is. And it beats out the Western ones that I know Frank studied all that. So a notion is a concept, but birth and death appear to me to be a reality. I mean, I wasn't, okay, you talked about the body. Okay, Donna, wasn't here before 1943 in March 8th. And we're much more than the body. That's what I'm getting into now. And to stop identifying with my body, which is what we do all the time. And Tom just said it's scary to let go. And that leaves me vulnerable. And then I get where I can't function. So I have to hold on to my body in a way so I can function, but that's not really who I am. We're much more, and that's what I think Roger was getting at. We're much more than this limitation of our body. Thank you for being there while I go through these thinking processes, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Donna. Yeah, that is what I was getting at. That we pay attention to the source, although it's not perceivable or describable. What makes the appearance of the physical body possible? That we're not limited. We're only limited by the body because of our thoughts. So if we realize that thoughts are just energy and they blend in with the flow of feelings and sights and sounds in that cosmic river, that Tai talks about.
Right, you were talking about sensations, and I think that's what I block. All the sensations I don't know what to do with them.
Yeah, well, we all have that deep conditioning to fear painful sensations. So looking deeply, like Tai says, is one way we can explore the actual reality of sensations. Like, do they have a size? Are they really all dense, or are they somehow solid, or are they always moving? Is there actual entity there you can find you can really pinpoint the separation between a sensation and a thought, or a sight and a sound, or do they all blend together, like in the meditation, you're saying unity of body, speech, and mind? They all are one substance that we can't perceive or describe, but that we don't have to fear if we look deeply, is what Tai is saying.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think I have a tendency to separate out, true nature, Buddha nature from body. It's kind of interesting that we're always making these delineations and these judgments. And I was reading a thing the other day about this. I don't know if you've heard of Jacob Needleman. Was a philosophy prof, very interesting dude.
I know him. I took courses with him at San Francisco
State. Yeah, very interesting guy, and I think he, but for me, I mean, I guess he was really into Gurdjieff and the movements and those types of things. And I've never really understood that, and I've yet to embark upon that. I have a friend that's really into it, and she runs to workshops have that do the movements, but I think I've had a tendency to separate the body out. And I was hearing in your talk, and I think in what you're saying about Thai too, is that there really isn't a need to be able to do that. When I closed my eyes, it's all of it, right? I mean, it's the body, it's the sensations, it's the thoughts, it's the awareness of. It's not just awareness of nature or true nature or self, separate self. With that, it's all of it, kind of propelling at the same time with that, and that's going to end at some point.
Yeah. Mm.
Thank you, everyone. Good morning again. This book, this meditation, when I read it, I feel some resistance coming up for me, and I think it has to do with my resistance of religion and worshiping a deity and so on. And as I read it and as I listen to Roger and be able to not necessarily have the Buddha as a person up on a pedestal, but seeing Buddha in Tom and Roger and Deb and Donna and myself and in the candle that's here and everything, I feel my resistance melting. And as Roger talked about the sensation in the body, and I'm thinking the Kanzeon is coming up, like praise to Buddha, all are one with Buddha, all awake to Buddha. And so I feel this melting and this feeling of awe arising as I guess allow myself to just be and take it in. So thank you all.
Thank you, Claudette. Yeah. Amazing. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Roger, do you want to say something?
No, I'll wait. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that beautiful talk. And I think what I enjoy most about your talks, Roger, is that it comes in a package that I don't even have to listen to the words. It's the way in which the words are delivered. And I think that's, for me, what I learned when I met Reb, and it really kind of resonates with what Claudette was saying about this, worshiping men, teachers, the Godhead. I was in this transition, and I don't even remember when it happened, but this cultural notion that God is, a guy with a, long white beard, and he's in the clouds, and he's separate to my everyday existence, was so deeply embedded in, the he. And I was very, very resistant to it. And all of the patriarchy. And I told you the story a couple of weeks ago about, what I had learned about San Francisco, whatever. But when Reb arrived, and I'm not about worshiping or, I'm just telling you, this is the phenomenal experience that I had. I was extremely hesitant to meet him. And he's sitting there, and I'm like, who is this guy? Like the cynical Deb, the atheist Deb, who didn't really want to get involved in all this, drop out and whatever, even though it had already been happening. And I see this halo around him, like a rainbow halo around this guy. And I'm like, well, it must be the light. And I'm like moving like this, like what is going on here? I'm like, whatever, And then I don't remember this. I wasn't staying for that whole retreat, but somehow I was leaving because I had a little 5-year-old kid and whatnot. So way up in Delray. So he comes to the door, for those of us who were leaving, in his little brown robe and whatever, and holds our hand and says goodbye. And I drove home and I was saying, like, what the hell just happened there? And then I went back again the next year, and I think about this now. This is like what meeting Red for those 3 years. I think it was 3 years. It was probably the greatest. I'm going to say it was the greatest gift I ever received in my life. The next year I come back, and what I realized from that experience was that it hasn't gone away. You know, the guy is in his body. He is so like in his body. And that's where everything comes from. And then he proceeded to teach us, I think, I don't remember if it was that year or the year after, but about welcoming. And all of it is while it's coming from this body. It is coming out of the body. It is not like, he is not, and I think these beautiful teachers, they're not caught up in the thoughts of the whatever about the sensation, but they're just in it. They are in the moment, in the body, and always ready for an appropriate response. And there's no way to read that. There's no, in my experience, there's no way to think through that. It's this practice that when the moment arrives and you have some little, ungrateful Dharma student that, doesn't get it, boof, you know how and what to like do. And I honestly feel like that happened to me during the 3 years that I spent with him. And one of the things that he taught us was like this openness, welcoming. I remember him teaching something like true grace is when you welcome what you want as well as what you don't want. And that has stayed with me all these 10, 15 years, whatever it is now. That grace, when it's easy when you get what you want. The statue that you ordered that you really wanted for years arrives, and it looks like Thai and it's lovely and you like it, but thank you. But if it arrives broken and shattered or made out of plastic that's not recyclable or whatever, and you don't want it, you don't like it, and you're like, ugh, welcoming that too, is this beautiful practice that he taught us that has stayed with me. And also that, this fearlessness of, for me, when I am in this body that is subject to fear, it gets fearful, right? It has these secretions of fear. But when I'm in this, and it has confrontations, it has all kinds of scary things in the world. But when I just notice those sensations as what they are and really tend to them with acute awareness, that window somehow of what to do next happens by itself, because I'm not caught up in the thoughts about what the sensation means and how I'm going to die in a few seconds or whatever. So anyway, thank you for all of that.
Yeah, interesting, because I think when we practice the welcoming, more and more my experience is that it's so much easier to welcome whatever happens, although I still have a really long way to go in that. It's so much easier if there's that open space of receiving just our being, our essential being, that is like giving us that sense that we already are what we want, and we already want, primarily what we really want is what we are, and we can share that and receive whatever happens as a reflection of that, that we're more identified with our being instead of, and then also, to be more fully ourselves, because Reb talks that too, like be this little separate being for the sake of not getting stuck. Because if we really allow ourselves to fully be this little ego thing, the true nature of the ego is free to manifest, which is there's not much there. There's all this aliveness, but it doesn't belong anywhere. It's not located anywhere, So, yeah.
Yeah, I think, the other thing in practicing with Ty's work and with mindfulness particularly, was that the body is from my understanding of it, that going, like you said, Rod, right into the sensation, the heart of the pain, the itchiness, the achiness, the discomfort, the desire to wiggle, move, whatever, really going right into that, there's some kind of like a wormhole that dissolves it. You know, that dissolution comes from this acute attention to it and the thoughts that are arising about it. And I think that's the way these masters have taught us. I mean, that's the Satipatthana Sutra of the body.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the body is the foundation of what is happening here, and how in the ancient times, I mean, they were constantly dealing with bugs and mud and rainy seasons and, you know, wild animals, and they had no doctors. You know, the Buddha is a doctor as well. I mean, he's viewed as a doctor. He's a mendicant. So in this window of opportunity of the discomforts, I think is also beautiful.
Yeah.
This leads me back when you were talking perceptions, sensations, to the Heart Sutra, that ear, eye, nose, tongue, and all that is empty, and that the skandhas are empty. And I thought, what are skandhas? What are they? I hear these words, but I don't really know what they are. Are skandhas part of what constitutes the body?
Well, what I remember studying when I studied some Abhidharma, actually Reb taught an Abhidharma class somewhere back in the 70s that I was in. And I just remember the skandhas were like, there's 5 skandhas, and I don't remember what they are exactly, but maybe there's sense perceptions plus thinking or something. But the translation was they're heaps, 5 heaps of something that we can't really perceive the essence or describe the essence, but they seem to be different forms of our experience. And, you know, I mean, Reb and Tai agree on emptiness. Emptiness it's empty of notions, or it's empty of the clinging to notions, but it's fully present, and it's, you know, self-fulfilled, full of its own aliveness or its own essence. But it's not something we need to cling to or to be afraid of, but to fully inhabit, you know, to be fully ourselves for the sake of not getting stuck there.
Okay.
Yeah.
So empty, though, means impermanent, constant.
Ungraspable. Ungraspable. You can't grasp.
Ungraspable.
Yeah. I'm careful not to invent a new word like Trump does these days, but I think ungraspable is good.
You know, and I think about dancing, and, you know, the dance. I don't know, when I dance, or when I see people dance, or when I watch, you know, dance, whether it's ballet or people in front of a band in a club or something like that, there's just a release, right? There's a devotion to the movements and nothing more, right? I mean, obviously it's more in terms of there's an energy piece, there's a vibration, you know, with music or whatever it is that somebody is tuning into. That movement is what yields the dance, that yields just that focus on that alone within that, which I think is powerful in itself, and thus so beautiful too. When I was in graduate school, my wife and I used to take a train up to New York and watch New York City Ballet company because they had like cheap seats, to be able to get in to see it. And it was absolutely, stunning, just remarkable with that. And that feeling of dancing with a group of people at a concert where everybody is moving and swaying. And I was watching the Grammys last night, and it's very interesting, the spontaneity of people who get up and move and dance. And I guess I think about my wife and I used to bicycle ride around Beaufort, South Carolina on Sundays, and there were probably 12 Southern Baptist churches on our bike ride, different denominations of Southern Baptist, and the music and the liveliness and the dress and the expression was just remarkable. We had to stop like at each church to experience it, to watch it. It's just and I guess that to think of being a part of it too with that, it's that being the dance with that lovely.
Yeah. The freedom of dance, when it's really uninhibited. Yeah.
Would someone like to do a metta, or shall we?
I have one, since we're kind of starting Thai. I probably have read this poem before in this group, but this is a really deep one for me. He used to, actually, my friend Judith's husband used to recite sayings from Thai before we do outdoor walking meditation. And this one's entitled, "The Earth is Waiting for You." The earth is always patient and open-hearted. She is waiting for you. She has been waiting for you for the last 1 trillion lifetimes. She can wait for any length of time. She knows you will come back to her one day. Fresh and green, she will welcome you exactly like the first time. Because love never says this is the last time. Because Earth is a loving mother. She will never stop waiting for you.